Hello, hello, Africa God Legend. I greet you. Welcome to this new edition of Legend of Africa. Mbolo, Jamna, Mbote, Kunjani, Mbumela, Ngichacho, Bembekiri, Nanje, Nangadev, Onisuguma, Mahakie. I greet you all. Well, we like to remind you about the goal of this channel, which is to celebrate, which is to promote our history, our African leaders, which is to tell the story from our side, the African story. We have heard enough about the African stories from the Western perspectives. It is time that we take lead to celebrate our leaders, to salute the legacy and the heritage. Welcome again. Today we will talk about an African leader who is considered as the father of the Republic of Tanzania. He's also known as the Mwalimu. This is the Swahili word for teacher. He was a committed pan-Africanist and boosted independence fighters opposed to white minority rule in Southern Africa. This is Julius Kambarage Nyerere. As an introduction to this program, we would like to locate the country Tanzania on an African map for those who are not familiar with the African geographic. Tanzania is an union of Tanzania mainland and Zanzibar island. It is located in East Africa. It is well known for hosting the Mount Kilimanjaro, and it's surrounded by the following countries: Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, DR Congo, Zambia, Malawi, and Mozambique. Its capital city is Dar es Salaam, and the economic capital city is Dodoma. Furthermore, we would like to pay tribute to the pan-Africanist former president of Tanzania, John Joseph Magufuli, who played a huge role in the Tanzania economic growth during his term from 2015 to 2021. He unfortunately died during the corona pandemic. We also extend our tribute to the leadership of the current president of Tanzania, Samia Suluhu Hassan. Julius Kambarage Nyerere was born on April 13, 1922 in Witongo, in the village of Butiama in Tanganyika's Mara region. He was one of the 25 surviving children of Nyerere Burito, the chief of the Zanaki people. His father Burito had 22 wives, of whom Julius' mother Muganga Nyangombe was the fifth. Nyerere means caterpillar in the Zanaki language. Nyerere began his education at the Native Administration School of Musenge in the city of Musoma in February 1934. His education was in Swahili, He avoided sporting activities and preferred to read in his dormitory during free time. He ended the elementary school in 1936 with the highest result of the entire region. His academic excellence allowed him to gain a government scholarship to attend the Tabora Government Secondary School, where he started learning English. He completed secondary school in October 1941 and got baptized in 1942 as a Roman Catholic. This is where he took officially the name of Julius. After secondary school, Julius went to study at the famous Makerere College in Kampala, Uganda, from January 1943 to 1946, where he graduated with a diploma in education. And during his time at Makerere College, Julius insisted on treating people as individuals, as the white colonial minority was not bigoted towards indigenous Africans. After graduating from the Makerere College, Julius went back to his home in Zanake in 1947 and served as a teacher from 1947 to 1949, where he intensified his political activities by joining the Tanganyika African Association, TAA, and participating in various political debates.
When I met Nyerere in the grounds of Tanganyika's Parliament building, the first thing I asked him was why he'd given up the comparative calm of life as a teacher to be a politician.
Well, I don't know, circumstances. I had already, while I was still teaching, I had already got involved in politics, and the time came when my headmaster offered me a choice, either to teach or to go into politics, and I decided to go into politics.
Have you, as a national leader, found it a disadvantage not to have been put in prison by the British?
I think there is a little disadvantage, but I'm not going to try and go into prison.
How do you think, Mr. Nyerere, this progress has been possible in Tanganyika?
I think there are many circumstances. We lack the difficulties that other countries have. We don't have a very serious racial problem here. We don't have a very serious tribal problem. Our tribes are smaller tribes. They're not the big tribes where you have the problems of, say, Buganda or Ashanti. Our tribes are smaller and therefore easier to integrate. And we have found it much easier here to build a nationalist movement covering all the tribes.
What further changes would you like to see in Tanganyika after responsible government?
Well, after responsible government, we feel if it is going to be really responsible government, what we want to do is to work to build an economic basis before we take over finally as an independent country. And also we would like to see that we have a minimum number of local people in the civil service before we take over. And those we feel will be really the two main functions of the government during the period between responsible government and independence.
Do you think that democracy can really work in a free African state?
It depends what one means by democracy. If democracy is the expression of the freedom of the individual, an expression which is a freedom which is seen in all the life, economic, social, and political, then I don't see why it shouldn't happen. If democracy means a change of government by the ballot box, which includes that freedom of the individual, I don't see why it shouldn't happen. I'm quite sure that in fact Africa is as capable of that kind of democracy as any other country. If by democracy you mean certain institutions like numerous political parties or two political parties and a parliament and oppositions and all this, that one doesn't know, because the method of the preservation of the human rights, which to me is the essence of democracy, will depend very much upon the circumstances and history of a country.
May I ask you, as you are a Roman Catholic, what you feel about the birth rate problem in Africa?
Well, first, as a Roman Catholic, I'm opposed to birth control. And as an African nationalist, I find no difficulty because, quite frankly, in a country like Tanganyika, our problem is one of underpopulation, not of overpopulation.
Mr. Nyerere, what do you see as the future for Africa, for all Africa?
I think it's going to be a future of a common sentiment, a sentiment which has been built up during this whole period of struggle and pre-struggle. And I can see Africa myself speaking as a continent with a greater unity, a greater uniformity than any other continent in the world. And largely, I think, on moral issues like the rights of man.
Nyerere decided to further his studies abroad. That's how he joined the University of Edinburgh in the UK in April 1949 and graduated in July 1952 with a Master of Arts. Julius arrived back in Dar es Salaam in October 1952, and in April 1953 he was elected as the president of the TAA, Tanganyika African Association. On July 7, 1954, the TAA was transformed into TANU, Tanganyika African National Union, and counted 100,000 members in 1955, which has grown to 500,000 in 1957. During the legislative elections of 1958, Kanu won all seats contested, and in March 1959, Richard Turnbull, the British governor of Tanganyika, gave 5 of the 12 ministerial posts to Kanu. In 1960, Nyerere attended a conference of independent African states in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where he presented a draft for the establishment of an East African Federation. In August 1960, the TANU political party won 70 of the 71 available seats, and the TANU's leadership was called to form a government. Julius Nyerere became then the chief minister. In 1961, a constitutional conference was held in Dar es Salaam to determine the nature of an independent constitution. Both anti-colonial campaigners and British officials attended. As a concession to the UK's colonial secretary Ian MacLeod, Nyerere agreed that after independence Tanganyika would remain the British Queen Elizabeth II as its head of state for a year before becoming a republic. One of Nyerere's first acts as prime minister was to stop the supply of Tanganyikans workers to South Africa gold mines. Although this resulted in a loss of around £500,000 a year for Tanganyika, Nyerere regarded it as a necessary act in expressing opposition to the apartheid system of white minority rule and racial segregation implemented in South Africa. On the 9th of December 1961, Tanganyika gained independence, but 6 weeks after independence, in January 1962, Nyerere resigned as prime minister as he intended to focus on restructuring the TANU political party and trying to, I quote, work out our own pattern of democracy. He appointed his close political ally, Rashudu Kawawa, as the new prime minister and embarked on touring the country by giving speeches in towns and villages where he emphasized on the need for self-reliance and hard work.
Well, you know the problem with democracy. I don't think there is any country in the world which does not call itself democratic. All countries in the world call themselves democratic. It's a matter, first, of definition, I think mainly of definition and of what we regard to be the essentials of democracy. We certainly ourselves regard ourselves as democratic. We understand why countries used to the multi-party system don't believe that a one-party system can be democratic, or are rather suspicious of the one-party system. We can't, frankly, convince them by sheer argument, philosophical argument, that this is possible. Perhaps the best thing is actually to see this thing in practice. What are the essentials of democracy? The essentials of democracy are that individuals should feel unharassed, that they are actually free in their society. Individual, this is the most essential thing. I never see why an individual should not feel free because of a machinery of election. And the two-party or the one-party is really basically a machinery of election. The second one, when it comes to machinery, is that an individual should feel a true choice of the people he wants to represent him in a government where it's no longer possible for people individually to participate in the government, that you have to select individual representatives. Now, either sometimes you select parties, sometimes you select individuals. Now, frankly, I don't see why the thing cannot be democratic, simply because sometimes you select a party, which is what the Western countries usually do, and in our own case, you select an individual, the party being given, the party policy being given. So, this is the kind of election we went through the other day, and we honestly believe we are independent, and we really ask the old countries at least to be democratic enough, to have a free mind, and to study the new experiments which are taking place in the rest of the world, and this experiment which is taking place in my own country. Yeah. It is democratic. We believe it is democratic.
Nyerere wrote an article, Ujama, which means family hood, in which he explained and praised this policy. In this article, he expressed many of his ideas about African socialism. For Nyerere, Ujama would provide a national ethic that was distinct from the colonial era and will help to cement Tanganyika's independent cause. It was finally on the 9th of December 1962 that Tanganyika became a republic, with Nyerere as the first president and Kawawa appointed as vice president. Nyerere endorsed the pan-Africanist idea of unifying Africa as a single state, although he disagreed with the Ghanaian president Kwame Nkrumah's view that this could be achieved quickly. Instead, Nyerere stressed the idea of forming regional confederations as short-term step towards the eventual unification of the continent. Following the Zanzibar revolution conducted by Abeid Karume, Zanzibar united with Tanganyika in 1964 into the Tanzania Republic. Tano merged with the Afro-Shirazi Party (ASP) of Zanzibar to form the current revolutionary state party called Chama cha Mapinduzi (CCM). In February 1965, President Nyerere made an 8-day state visit to China and was fascinated by Mao Zedong as they share some common views. In June of the same year, the Chinese premier Zhu Enlai visited Dar es Salaam, seeking financial support to build a railway that would connect Zambia to the coast and through Tanzania. President Nyerere secured Chinese backing in 1970 after Western countries refused to finance the operation. In 1967, Nyerere co-founded the East African Community for greater integration between Tanzania, Uganda, and Kenya, with headquarters located in Arusha, Tanzania. President Nyerere was always hosting and helping various liberation groups from Southern Africa, such as Frelimo of Mozambique or ZANU of South Rhodesia, actual Zimbabwe, to set up operations to overthrow the colonial governments of their respective countries. Nyerere's government had warm relations with the neighboring Zambian government of Kenneth Kaunda. President Nyerere strongly disapproved the cooperation of Hastings Banda, Malawian president at the time, with the Portuguese colonial governments in Angola and Mozambique, and also with the white minority government of Rhodesia, actual Zimbabwe, and South Africa, the apartheid regime. In January 1967, a TANU National Executive Meeting was held in Arusha, which led to the famous Arusha Declaration. This declaration confirmed the government's commitment to build a democratic socialist state and stressed the development of an ethos of self-reliance. In January 1971, President Obote of Uganda was overthrown by a military coup led by Idi Amin Dada. President Nyerere refused to recognize the legitimacy of Amin's administration and offered President Obote refuge in Tanzania. In August 1978, Uganda invaded Tanzania by annexing the Kagera salient region. Nyerere decided to invade Uganda and succeed to overthrow Amin Dada in 1979. President Nyerere spent his final term as president from 1980 to 1985 and was then replaced by Ali Hassan Whitney after the 1985 general election. Nyerere remained the head of CCM political party until August 1990. Besides his political activism, Nyerere was a convicted Roman Catholic practitioner since the age of 20. He was married to Maria Gabriel Nyerere and had 7 children. Nyerere died on October 14, 1999 of leukemia. Benjamin Kappa, The Tanzanian president at the time announced his death and proclaimed a 30 days mourning period. President Nyerere was called the father of the nation and was also known as Mwalimu, which means teacher in the Swahili language. He gained recognition for the successful merger between Tanganyika and the Zanzibar islands, and also for maintaining Tanzania as a united and stable state. In January 2005, the Diocese of Musoma in Tanzania opened the course for the canonization of Julius Nyerere, who has been a devout Catholic and a man of recognized integrity. On the 13th of May 2005, Pope Benedict XVI declared him a servant of God. But why till today his canonization process has not been terminated? It has been 19 good years. This can question the equity and equality of Roman Catholic Church in the canonization process. Tanzania's founding father Julius Nyerere has been honored with a statue outside the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in February 2024. Also, a museum and a mausoleum devoted to him were built in Butiama. He received several international recognition and honorary doctorates. The note of 100 Tanzanian shilling carries his profile. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we reach the end of this current episode of Africa God Legends, dedicated to revisit the legacy of the President Julius Kambarage Nyerere, the Mwalimu of Tanzania. Thank you very much for listening to the current video, and thank you so much for your support. We please you to like the current video, to also like our page, and to share our videos massively, so that our history, African history, is very well broadcasted and well comprehended. Thank you very much. God bless you. My Buyei Africa.
Tunayo furaha ya kuadhimisha miaka 46